Hi everyone, I'm Walnut and welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet VGC video. Today I'm revisiting my Sand team but with some changes. With the addition of Gothitelle, this team more resembles a Great Tusk team but with the Garchomp in Great Tusk spot. I just like Garchomp better as he looks cooler and is a little bit faster. Gothitelle's Shadow Tag is an incredibly unique ability and I'm excited to try it out in VGC. If you didn't know, it prevents opponents from switching unless they're a Ghost type, have a Shed Shell, go for a move like Volt Switch, or have Shadow Tag themselves. Switching is one of the most powerful moves you can make, and denying your opponent the ability to switch is pretty impactful. I've also been trying some different EV spreads and sets, so first I'll go over the team changes, and then I'll show it off in a few battles. As always, rental code, PokePaste, and timestamps for each battle will be available in the description below, and while you're down there, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and hit that subscribe button. Thanks a lot, and now onto the changes. I decided to go back to Adamant on Garchomp. I just like the extra attack, and I'll usually have Tailwind up so I'll outspeed most things, though it is extremely painful to not outspeed Booster Speed Iron Bundle. I didn't know this until very recently, but Garchomp with no bulk, no Terra has a 6.3% chance to survive Icy Wind from Iron Bundle. It's not the strongest move or the most useful calc, but it could be useful in a pinch. Speaking of Iron Bundle, mine now has Encore instead of Hydro Pump. A strong water move is nice to have, but I just don't like how unreliable it is, though it is fun to 100 to 0 something. Encore lets Iron Bundle punish defensive plays, which could help in a Dondozo matchup or against Protects. Though I have found that the Glimmora Dondozo matchup is really difficult because the poison damage is a bit too much to handle. Talonflame has had his EV spread adjusted. It's a lot bulkier so Talonflame can get off more taunts and Will-O-Wisps. I also have a Terra Ghost so I can preserve Gale Wings versus Extreme Speed, and since I don't really care about the damage from Brave Bird anymore since I don't have attack investment, the Flying Terra is going to be less useful. Though I do need to keep in mind that if I go for my Terra, I'm not going to be immune to Earthquake, because I might have Earthquaked my own Talonflame when testing. I'm sorry, Talonflame. Tyranitar has had its EV spread and moves updated. Locake is now Brick Break and Tyranitar is a lot faster. With 180 speed EVs, Tyranitar can outspeed non-booster speed Iron Bundle and Flutter Mane while under Tailwind. I did lose a good amount of bulk, but to be fair, you don't need bulk if you just KO your opponents first. I felt like I was going against screens pretty often and they were pretty annoying to deal with, so I switched over to Brick Break. I still have Assurance because I honestly love that move. Dealing double damage if the target has already been damaged that turn is an interesting mechanic. I just didn't fully understand the move, but it turns out the damage boost also works if the opponent takes recoil or life orb damage too. Flutter Mane is now Terra Fairy and Life Orb. I liked how Focus Sash gave me survivability, but having it on a sand team was a bit awkward, either forcing me to Terra or to position extremely carefully. Now I'm trying out Life Orb so I can still run Protect but I don't have anti-synergy. I have enough speed to outspeed Adamant Dondozo, and under Tailwind I can outspeed a Sandrush Lycanroc. Last but not least is the new addition Gothitelle. Gothitelle is extremely bulky with a Citrus Berry, Fake Out, Psychic, Trick Room, and Taunt are the 4 moves. I just took this set from somewhere but I've been enjoying it on my team. The Terra Dark lets you take Ghost moves and Dark type moves better, though I think Terra Water might work here as well. I added Gothitelle onto the team because I wanted a better matchup into Dondozo, Palafin, and Psyspam, and I think Gothitelle can provide all 3. Versus Dondozo, I can limit the opponent's movement and potentially isolate the Dondozo or Tatsugiri to stop them from getting set up. Versus Palafin, I can prevent them from going hero mode, which isn't too difficult since Palafins typically don't run flip turn. And versus Psyspam, I can protect with my partner slot and then reverse Trick Room with Gothitelle. Gothitelle is also the reason why I'm trying Encore on Iron Bundle. If I Encore something into a useless move and it's trapped, I can basically turn it into a 2v1. I'm not sure if I'm quite sold on it yet though, because Iron Bundle and Gothitelle don't threaten too much damage with Psychic, Icy Wind, and Freeze Dry. But that's it for the team update though, time for a few battles. This first battle is actually with an older version of the team, so my Flutter Mane and Tyranitar are slower and bulkier. My opponent has Dragonite, Grimmsnarl, Arcanine, Sylveon, Ironmoth, and Garganacl. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of screens lately, which is why I switched to Brick Break on Tyranitar, especially since I don't have Annihilate on the team anymore. Flutter Mane looks pretty powerful this battle, though they do have some Fairy resists in Arcanine and Ironmoth, so my plan is to bring Gothitelle next to the Flutter Mane. Gothitelle can trap all my opponents, and then I can switch to a more favorable matchup and eliminate my opponents since they're not able to switch out. To deal with the fire types, I'm going to bring Tyranitar and Garchomp. These 4 also happen to be my slowest Pokemon, though I don't think I'm going to be using Trick Room this battle since my opponent's Pokemon could be even slower. I didn't bring Iron Bundle because I don't think it deals that much damage and I don't really need the speed control. Talonflame's going to stay home for the same reasons. I just want my heavy hitters and my Trap Queen. Besides the fire types, I'm a little worried about Sylveon because it has pretty good bulk and could take hits from whatever I send in. It also threatens my Garchomp and Tyranitar with super effective moves. My opponent's going to be sending in the Grimmsnarl and Arcanine in the lead, and is it just me or is their Grimmsnarl really small? We're going to be taking the Intimidate on our special Pokemon, but this turn I'm just going to go for a Fake Out into the Arcanine so they can't Flare Blitz my Flutter Mane or anything, and then I'll go for a Moonblast into the Grimmsnarl. This should get the KO even if they get a Light Screen up, and if I get the KO, that means they can't set Reflect up, which means my physical attackers in the back are going to be a lot better. I could have went for a taunt into the Grimmsnarl and maybe switch to someone else in the back, but if I bring in the Garchomp I would want to go for the Terra to avoid Will-O-Wisp and Spirit Break. Tyranitar also doesn't want to eat a Will-O-Wisp, so I thought this plan would be better for now. No Protect from their side, so this Fake Out is going to make the Arcanine flinch. Grimmsnarl gets the Light Screen up. And through the Light Screen, the Moonblast is able to pick up the KO, so my physical attackers in the back are looking a lot stronger now. My opponent's going to be sending in the Sylveon next. So it's a little bit unfortunate that they sent in the Fairy type, since my Pokemon in the back are going to be Quaking, but I think the Tyranitar will be fine here. It does have a Sand Special Defense boost and Assault Vest, so a super effective hit still won't be doing too much damage. I think it's highly unlikely that the Arcanine would Will-O-Wisp my Flutter Mane slot this turn, though I could get burned from a fire attack like Flare Blitz. This turn I'm going to just taunt the Arcanine, this way I won't be able to get my Tyranitar burned after I switch in. I thought about going for a Trick Room here since my Tyranitar is pretty slow on this set, though it's possible that the Sylveon is slower, so I didn't end up going for it. Flutter Mane's going to switch out for the Tyranitar. Tyranitar's going to set up the Sand, and Arcanine's going to go for a Snarl. And it does 3 damage to Tyranitar, which is honestly kind of funny to me. I know it's not meant to do damage into a Tyranitar, but 3 damage. We're able to land the taunt on the Arcanine, so even if they wanted to Will-O-Wisp, they can't. And Sylveon goes for a Hyper Voice. It does more damage to Gothitelle than it does to the Tyranitar because our bulk is just so good. They do have the Throat Raid to boost their special attack though, but even at +1 I don't think Hyper Voice will KO my Tyranitar. I should be safe from any other attacks, so I'm just going to go for a Rock Slide and a Psychic. I don't expect the Psychic to do too much damage because I am at -1 special attack, but I don't really have too much better to do with Gothitelle. I could taunt the Sylveon, but they're probably just spamming Hyper Voice. I considered switching, but I didn't want to take any attacks for free and I wanted to keep my trap up. I thought even if Gothitelle fainted, I'd be fine, because I'm able to get value without dealing damage here, and if I faint I can bring in a fresh attacker. Gothitelle's going to eat a Flare Blitz from their Arcanine, but we're able to survive. We're going to eat our berry. Psychic's going to land on the Sylveon, do very little damage, almost less than the Sand, and Rock Slide's going to do a ton to the Arcanine, bring it down to the berry range, but one more Rock Slide should pick up the KO. The opposing Sylveon gets flinched though, which is pretty lucky for us I guess. I don't think it's super necessary. The Hyper Voice would knock out the Gothitelle, and then I can go for a Terra Flying and Earthquake with Garchomp, which would pick up the double. But since we didn't eat a Hyper Voice on Tyranitar last turn, it's still very safe. I'm just going to keep up the trap, go for another Psychic and a Rock Slide. My opponent's just going to go for a Flare Blitz into the Gothitelle and finish it off. And Tyranitar is going to go for a Rock Slide, it gets the double KO, and my opponent will only have one Pokemon left in the back versus my 3 big hitters. So they have Dragonite, Iron Moth, and Garganacl left. I thought I would bring in Garchomp first. It's good into the Iron Moth and Garganacl, and if they send in Dragonite, then the Garchomp can just buy some time, make sure that the potential multi-scale is broken by Sand Chip, and then I can bring in the Fluttermane to clean it up. My opponent does send in the Dragonite, so unfortunately it's not going to be as easy as clicking Earthquake. I preserved my Terra up until now, so I could use it here, but I didn't want to potentially let them KO both my Pokemon if they went for like a super powerful Earthquake, so instead I thought I'd just stay as a normal Garchomp and force them to take one KO at a time. I went for a double Rock Slide here, though I probably could have just went with Assurance on Tyranitar to make sure I get some damage on the Dragonite. They're going to go for a Terra Normal here. I kind of thought it might be Terra Flying, which is why I didn't go for a Brick Break or anything. Garchomp's going to land the Rock Slide. And Dragonite's going to go for an Ice Spitter, so a Terra Fire would have let me survive, but it's okay. I still have Fluttermane and Tyranitar in the back, and now the Dragonite's going to be quite low from all these hits. They also have a Life Orb too. But yeah, one more hit should finish off the Dragonite. I end up going for a Terra Flying this turn because, like I said, I didn't want both my Pokemon to faint in case they Earthquake, but that doesn't make any sense because my Fluttermane would just outspeed and get the KO, so I ended up being a little bit BM, so sorry to my opponent. I was really happy that the Goth was so useful this battle. I've never really used Gothitelle or Shadow Tag before, but if you can catch your opponents in a bad position, you can get a pretty big lead. I turned it from a 4v3 into a 3v1 in just a matter of turns, and my opponent didn't have a lot of options. It did feel a little bit awkward when I got snarled and I was kind of dead weight, at least offensively, though I was still getting value even without dealing damage with just my ability. The flinch was pretty lucky, but I don't think it was necessary considering how much damage I had already done and Earthquake threatening a KO on both my opponents. But GG's to my opponent. I think this battle can highlight the strengths of Gothitelle, which is why I wanted to show it even though it was an older version of the team. I'm going to be a little bit faster paced with these next two battles. My next opponent has Espatra, Sandy Shocks, Fluttermane, Tyranitar, Indeedee, and Armarouge. And they have some pretty annoying combinations on this team. Sandy Shocks and Espatra can threaten Gravity and Hypnosis, and Indeedee and Armarouge is annoying with Psy Spam. My Fluttermane and Tailwind should be able to outspeed the Espatra pair, and then I can deal enough damage into them that my Garchomp should be able to clean them up. Versus the Indeedee Armarouge, when testing I was often able to switch to Gothitelle and then attack with Fluttermane as they set up Trick Room. Then I can just protect and reverse the Trick Room before continuing my attack, so I'll bring Gothitelle in the back for the Indeedee Armarouge. Like I said, I'll be bringing Garchomp as well. Tyranitar would be better into Psy Spam with its Dark typing, but I wanted a faster damage option versus my opponents in case it was Espatra, so I went for Garchomp instead. My opponent's going to be leading the Indeedee and Armarouge. Looks like they have the Psychic Seed on the Indeedee. And like I said, I already have my game plan in mind. I'm just going to attack with the Fluttermane and then swap to a Gothitelle. When testing, my Dazzling Gleam did about half to an Armor Rouge with a crit, so I committed the Terra this turn thinking I would get a 2-hit KO on the Armor Rouge, though I failed to consider that the Fairy boost is kind of less since I already have Fairy Stab. So we're going to be switching to Gothitelle right here. But my opponent is not going for a follow me, they're going for a helping hand, and you know what that means. I know what's coming and I don't like it. I'm going to go for a Dazzling Gleam, but like I said, the Fairy boost is a little bit less since I already have a Fairy Stab, so I don't even deal half, and they're going to go for a huge Expanding Force and KO my Flutter Mane. My opponent made a great move turn 1 to KO my Terra'd Flutter Mane, and this play is what beats my game plan. Though it is a bit risky for them if I just go for a Shadow Ball, but spoiler alert, now that the Gothitelle is in this position and I can't really do anything. Psychic's not very effective, Fake Out is blocked by Psychic Terrain, Taunt isn't that useful because I'm just going to faint anyways. I'm going to end up getting swept as Garchomp's going to be walled by the Grass Terra and Talonflame can't even attack when the Psychic Terrain is up. Their Armor Rouge is actually a weak armor set, which I wasn't expecting since they don't have a way to proc like a weakness policy, though I guess it's not that surprising because they don't have that many slow Pokemon on their team, so it might not be worth going for a Trick Room. I had a game plan going into this battle, so it looks like I'll have to adjust that game plan to account for weak armor Rouge and NDD. I think I should have just let Garchomp Talonflame instead, forced the Terra out of the Armor Rouge, and then the Flutter Mane in the back is going to be a lot better. But GG's to my opponent. My next opponent has Amoonguss, Murkrow, Great Tusk, Goldengo, Iron Hands, and Tyranitar. I like Talonflame and Flutter Mane as a lead since they can't be faked out. Talonflame also lets me match Tailwind and taunt Amoonguss if I need to. I think I can lead Talonflutter, and I can just launch attacks while under Tailwind. I should do good damage into most of their team, maybe even force a Terra, and then bring Garchomp and Tyranitar in the back, and then go for Earthquakes and Terraflying Assurance or Terra Blast to clean up the battle. Talonflame, Flutter Mane, Garchomp, and Tyranitar are just a common group of 4 that I bring to most battles. I just feel really comfortable with those 4. My opponent's going to be leading the Murkrow and Great Tusk, and I thought, oh, I can just go for Tailwind, Dazzling Gleam, deal good damage into the Murkrow and Great Tusk. However, I just realized my Tailwind won't matter if they happen to go for a Prankster Quash onto my Flutter Mane, and since I don't have a Focus Sash, they could land a 1-hit KO. I don't think they would just attack straight up since they could easily get knocked out this turn, so I'm going to go for a Taunt onto the Murkrow and protect this turn. This way I can catch them if they try to go for a Quash and attack. If that doesn't work, unless they go for a spread move to hit my Talonflame, I'll most likely preserve my Gale Wings, and then I can go for a Tailwind and a Fairy move into their team. But my opponent actually commits a Terra right away, and it's a Terra Steel Great Tusk. So looks like they're not that scared of my Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane's gonna protect here. But they're gonna just set up the Tailwind. That's alright as long as they're not going for a spread move. But nope, it's a Rock Slide from their side. This is gonna delete my Talonflame. Unfortunately, they went for the play that kind of makes me auto-lose the game. Now I really don't have good options into their team, especially since I don't have Tailwind up. Although my turn went horribly for me, I'm happy that I saw the potential Quash play. It turns out my opponent's other moves on Great Tusk are Iron Head and Ice Spinner. I have no clue if they didn't have Protect or if they only had one stab move, but it makes sense why they felt so confident going for the Great Tusk against my Flutter main. I think if I went for a Tailwind and Dazzling Gleam, I would at least have some damage into their team, and I'd still at least have the Tailwind up, so even if they went for the Quash Headlong Rush, I should stick with that play. My next opponent is running Lycanroc, Tyranitar, Fluttermane, Iron Bundle, Armor, and Indeedee. So after the early incident against the Indeedee Armor, I'm going to assume that I won't need Gothitelle into this matchup, because there's not too many slow Pokemon on their side, and they also have Iron Bundle, so if they want to go for a weak Armor Weakness Policy Cheese with Flip Turn, they can, so I'm going to gamble that it's not Trick Room on this set. I'm going to be leading Talonflame and Fluttermane, as I can outspeed anything they go for. Dazzling Gleam will let me chip the Tyranitar and Lycanroc, and versus the Iron Bundle and Fluttermane, if I go for a Terra, I can guarantee the KO, and survive a Shadow Ball back. Into a Flip Turn lead, I can outspeed and KO either slot. In the back, I like Tyranitar to come this time as insurance in case they do bring the Scythe Spam, while also threatening powerful hits into their team. And lastly, I'm going to be bringing Garchomp here as another option into Lycanroc and Tyranitar. Sand gives them a special defense boost, so Bundle and Gothitelle might not be too powerful offensively, and the Sand Veil might be useful if I need to dodge some Rock Slides. My opponent's going to be leading the Iron Bundle and Fluttermane, and I'm pretty happy that they led something that I'm prepared for. I'm going to be going for the Tailwind and Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam here. Looks like they will confirm that it's a booster energy speed on the Iron Bundle, so I know it's not a Focus Sash. I will have to commit my Terra early, so I can't go for any Earthquakes next to Terraflying Tyranitar, but if I KO the Iron Bundle early, my Garchomp's going to feel a lot safer without its Terra, and this Terra is just really nice because it helps me offensively versus the Iron Bundle, and defensively versus their Shadow Ball. So unless their Pokemon aren't max speed, they shouldn't be going for a Terra this turn. And looks like they're not using any Protects either, so this Iron Bundle is definitely going down. Yeah, Dazzling Gleam picks up the KO, does pretty good damage to the Fluttermane as well, but not enough to get the knockout. The Shadow Ball brings me down to about their HP percentage as well, but it does get the special defense drop. But I mean, our HP is low enough that the special defense drop doesn't really matter anyways. They're going to be sending in the Tyranitar next, and I'm going to assume that it's Lycanroc in the back because who else would you bring with Tyranitar? Maybe Indeedee, who knows. But their Fluttermane's pretty low now. I wasn't sure how much Dazzling Gleam would do into Tyranitar, so I thought I'd just go for a Brave Bird into Fluttermane and then Moonblast into Tyranitar. I do expect them to survive and KO both my Pokemon with Rock Slide, but I thought it'd be worth it to just get a ton of damage into their team with Moonblast now. Then in the back I can go for Rock Slides or Earthquakes with Garchomp and Tyranitar and just finish them off. They're actually going to commit the Terra here. It should be on the Tyranitar since the Fluttermane should be fainting this turn. Unless it's like a Terra Steel, maybe it would live from that. But nope, it's just Terraflying Tyranitar. Brave Bird's able to easily pick up the KO on Fluttermane. And Moonblast almost gets the one-hit KO on Tyranitar. Of course, we drop their special attack, though it won't matter since they're a physical attacker and they're able to connect Rock Slide on both my Pokemon, getting a double. But, you know, their Tyranitar teared into a flying type. If you've used Tyranitar before, you know what this is gonna mean. Yep, it's gonna faint to Sandstorm. So now I have my Garchomp and Tyranitar versus most likely the Lycanroc in the back, so I feel really safe here. Of course Lycanroc is going to outspeed my Pokemon, but I think my Pokemon are bulky enough that they can take some hits. Maybe not Tyranitar if the Lycanroc goes for close combat, but the Garchomp should be able to take a few. It is the Lycanroc in the back. I think that was a dive ball, which I guess matches the color. I'm going to be going for rock slides on both my Pokemon, because once I earthquaked myself while my opponent protected, and I don't want that to ever happen again. I'd honestly rather lose to a rock slide miss than lose in an embarrassing way like that. Their Lycanroc's going to go for a close combat and KO Tyranitar, so it looks like I could have just went for the earthquake anyways. But luckily Rock Slide is able to connect. Even if it missed, I think they would need like 3 close combats and maybe some crits or maybe a Rock Slide flinch to get the KO on me, so I think I was still pretty safe here. They go for some Rock Slide flinches, but they are going to miss. And Earthquake is going to finish off my opponent. I think my lead this battle was pretty perfect, though I think my second turn could have been a little bit more optimal. Maybe I just go for a Brave Bird into Tyranitar and then a Dazzling Gleam, maybe even a Protect. Though I was really happy with how that turn played out. Will-O-Wisp probably isn't worth it that turn in case they're Lumberry or if I miss, but GG's to my opponent. I'm actually going to be skipping a battle before and after this one. In one of them I just clicked Tailwind and then spread moves and my opponent didn't really get to do anything. The other one I won because I crit my opponent on turn 1. They had a Farigiraf and Tyranitar and they were about to get Trick Room up for their +2 weakness policy Tyranitar, but then I crit their Terragrass Farigiraf, which allowed me to just spam Earthquake and Assurance to win the game, which is super unlucky for my opponent. I should have lost that one, but I got Giga bailed out. Instead, we're going to be facing almost the exact same team as last battle. I say almost because the genders on their Pokemon are a little bit different than last time, so it shouldn't be the exact same team. I thought it'd be interesting to see the same matchup but played by a different opponent. I'm going to be bringing these same Pokemon in the same order since it worked well for me last time, so I don't really see a need to change my game plan. This time my opponent's going to be leading the Tyranitar and Lycanroc versus my Talonflame and Fluttermane, and I'm just going to go for a Tailwind and Dazzling Gleam here for some chip. I outspeed the Lycanroc with my Fluttermane and I just want some damage into it and maybe I'll get the KO with someone in the back. I'm not going to go for the Terra turn 1 like I did in the last battle. Versus the Tyranitar and Lycanroc, I expect the Fluttermane and Talonflame to just faint on turn 1. I'm going to be saving my Terra for the Garchomp and Lycanroc in the back instead. Looks like my opponent is going to commit the Terra right away, and it should be on the Tyranitar. A Terra on the Lycanroc really doesn't benefit them too much here. And the Lycanroc doesn't have to be too scared that they need to commit their Terra. With this Tailwind we're going to be able to outspeed the Lycanroc now. And Dazzling Gleam doesn't even do half to either Pokemon. It does make sense though because the Lycanroc is in sand, so it does have a special defense boost. Lycanroc goes for a Rock Slide and it actually misses Talonflame, so it's able to survive for half a second longer as the Rock Slide from Tyranitar is able to pick up the KO. So if they missed the Fluttermane actually might have lived the turn, but unfortunately they still pick up the double KO, so that miss really didn't matter. With the Sand Chip, the Tyranitar on their side drops below half, but it's not exactly good enough for me just yet. I have to bring in my Garchomp and Tyranitar here, and the position's still not the greatest. I'm afraid of a close combat from their Lycanroc, so I'm going to go for the Terra Flying on Tyranitar, and Garchomp will just go for an Earthquake so I can guarantee the KO on Lycanroc. Tyranitar will go for a Rock Slide into theirs, because I need the Rock Slide damage to KO their Tyranitar. This play could be bad if the Rock Slide misses, but I don't think I have any other attacks that would KO both the Tyranitar on their side and the Lycanroc. I thought about going for Rock Slide on the Garchomp as well, but I need my Tyranitar's Rock Slide to hit to get the KO. The Garchomp's Rock Slide really doesn't make a difference here. I took a lot of time on this turn because I was looking for a more guaranteed option, but I wasn't able to come up with one. The Lycanroc does go for a close combat. It doesn't do too much damage into Tyranitar because we do have the Flying Terra, and their defense drops a little bit. This Earthquake will be able to pick up the KO on Lycanroc. Won't be able to hit any of the other Pokemon on the field though, but that's fine. Now we just need to land this Rock Slide on their Tyranitar and we should be good. Luckily we do connect, so my opponent will only have 2 Pokemon left in the back. However, based on my last opponent, I can kind of expect who they might bring here. I don't really expect the Indeedee Armarouge, I'm more so expecting the Fluttermane and Iron Bundle. And unfortunately, that is what they have. And it's also the booster speed on Iron Bundle, so my Garchomp is going to be slower. So obviously to me, my Garchomp is slower than the booster speed Iron Bundle, but my opponent doesn't know that, so I think they're more likely to go for an Icy Wind here and not just the Freeze Dry into my Garchomp. I think they want to slow down my Tyranitar and then maybe try to get the KO with Moonblast. But if they do go for the Icy Wind, my Garchomp does have that 6.3% chance to survive the hit, which would allow me to get the Earthquake off and put them in range of Rock Slide from Tyranitar. Iron Bundle goes for the Icy Wind, but it misses the Garchomp, and it misses the Tyranitar, so I'll never get to find out if the Garchomp roll matters, or if it was a roll with the Moonblast from the Fluttermane if they went for it. Because my Earthquake and Rock Slides are both going to land here and pick up the double KO, it's very unfortunate for my opponent that they had to end this way. Of course I did have the Sandveil on Garchomp, so I was a little less worried on that slot at least, but the one that really did matter was going to be the Tyranitar. The Icy Wind miss was incredibly lucky, but I think they would have to go for the Moonblast into Tyranitar and get the KO, or for me to miss my Rock Slides for it to matter. This battle I felt a lot less confident against my opponent. I think there's a lot more luck involved with some Rock Slides hitting, though maybe it could have been mitigated if I went for a Protect on Fluttermane turn 1. Then when Talonflame feints to the Rock Slides, I could bring in Tyranitar and Fluttermane, go for the Terra Flying on Tyranitar maybe, and then go for a Rock Slide Dazzling Gleam, and I think that would KO a Terra Flying Tyranitar. Then I would be up an extra Pokemon against the Fluttermane and Iron Bundle in the back. But GG's to my opponent, it was certainly interesting to me to battle 2 similar teams. So as I said earlier, I won my next battle entirely off luck, and it was very unfortunate for my opponent. I was about to call it here because after a pretty lucky win, I usually stop playing since I don't believe my luck will be that good again. However, I checked my standing and I was really close to top 1000 on the ladder, which I've never been able to do at the end of a season. So instead of running away with my points, I thought I'd face a challenge on now. This is my winning in, so to speak. My last opponent has Screamtail, Roaring Moon, Ceruledge, Amoonguss, Iron Bundle, and Great Tusk. Right off the bat, I'm feeling despair. Screamtail is a pretty annoying Pokemon for me to face, it's really bulky, has super disruptive moves, though I think I can guess its set. Screens with Ceruledge has been picking up lately, so this Screamtail might be a Screentail. I've seen Sableye with Ceruledge, and that set had Screens, Encore, and Disable, so this Screamtail could be similar. It could also have an attacking move or Protect or Thunder Wave thrown in there. Ceruledge is actually one of the most annoying Pokemon for me to face, especially when it's behind screens, so I want my lead to be able to handle Screamtail Ceruledge. I've been heavily relying on my usual 4, Talonflame, Fluttermane, Garchomp, and Tyranitar, but this battle I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to be leading the Tyranitar and Gothitelle. This will allow me to trap my opponents, and I think Tyranitar has a decent matchup into their team. Taunt would be useful versus the Screamtail and the Amoonguss, and if Ceruledge tears in front of Tyranitar, then they're going to be trapped and I can go for Brick Break, otherwise I'm fine going for Rock Slides and Assurance. If I'm able to trap the Great Tusk, I think Terra Flying has a pretty good matchup into it, except for Ice Spinner. The other 2 Pokemon will still be Garchomp and Fluttermane in the back. I don't hate Iron Bundle into their team, but I think it's weak into Ceruledge unless it's Terra Grass, so if I knew it was Terra Grass Ceruledge, I might bring it over Garchomp. My opponent's going to be sending in the Screamtail and the Roaring Moon in the lead. Roaring Moon is fine. It can't do any super effective damage into Tyranitar most likely, and it looks like it has a booster energy. I actually missed what stat got boosted when I first did the battle, but now I know its attack. If the Roaring Moon has Iron Head, that would absolutely hurt my Tyranitar, but I think that move is pretty rare on Roaring Moon, so I'm going to be going for a Fake Out onto the Screamtail and then a Brick Break on the Roaring Moon. The Roaring Moon's a bigger threat offensively, but I'm scared of a Thunder Wave from the Screamtail. I probably should have just targeted the Roaring Moon with Fake Out instead, since if they are the screen set that I'm expecting, then the Brick Break is going to be really powerful into them. They could go for a Terra here, but since they're booster energy, I expect the Roaring Moon to be Terra Flying, which would be weak to Rock. There's no protects from their side, so this Fake Out is going to flinch their Screamtail. The Roaring Moon goes for a Jaw Lock though, which I kind of forgot about, and that does a ton of damage to Gothitelle. But since we're so bulky, we're able to survive, and with this berry, we're going to be able to survive a couple turns of Sand Chip as well. And Brick Break does over half to the Roaring Moon. One more should get the KO unless they go for the Flying Terra. So my Gothitelle doesn't have Protect, so I honestly expected to faint this turn. A taunt into the Screamtail would be nice if I survive, but instead I'm actually going to go for a Trick Room here. Right now both my opponents are faster than me, so if I get this Trick Room off, my Gothitelle can just taunt the Screamtail the next turn. Either way, they'll only get one status move off. I probably should have used Rock Slide instead of Brick Break this turn, since the Screamtail is kind of free to disable my Brick Break if they have it, and that could allow the Roaring Moon to live. I'm not exactly sure if a Rock Slide would KO the Roaring Moon, but from this HP range, I get Stab and it's taken some Sand Chip, so I think it has a chance of getting the KO. I end up barely getting my selection off at the last second, mostly because I really didn't know what to do with the Gothitelle slot, since I expected it to faint this turn. Roaring Moon's just going to protect though. And Screamtail goes for a Psychic Fangs onto my Gothitelle, but off a base 65 attack and not very effective, it's not doing enough to get the KO. So we're going to be able to get this Trick Room up. So what was once a last minute decision is now the state of the field, and now I'm going to be able to outspeed my opponents. Luckily Gothitelle survived the turn and we were able to get the Trick Room up, so now I'm going to be attacking first, though if they have a Moongus on their team in the back I could be in some trouble. I'm still going to be locked into Brick Break this turn instead of Rock Slide, since I want to 100% KO the Roaring Moon unless they go for the Terra, which I don't think is likely because they have so little HP left. I'm also going to go for the taunt into the Screamtail since I'm faster, this way they can only go for the Psychic Fangs, which is not good into my team. Brick Break is able to get the KO because they don't go for the Terra. Screamtail tries to go for a Light Screen here, but it's blocked by the taunt. I'm going to assume that they also have Reflect and Light Clay on their set. With the Roaring Moon eliminated now and the Screamtail taunted and trapped, I feel like my position is pretty strong. And they're going to be sending in the Great Tusk next. So this is telling me that my opponent probably doesn't have a Moongus because they would have sent it in if they did. My Gothitelle will faint to another turn of Sand Chip, and I could go for a Psychic into the Great Tusk here, but I'm actually going to switch the Gothitelle out. If they go for a Protect on their Great Tusk, they'll block my Psychic and then I'll faint to my own Sand Chip, so I think this could be an opportunity to just get a free switch into Garchomp. The Screamtail can only go for Psychic Fangs, which isn't doing very much damage, and then I can go for a Terra Flying on Tyranitar, since I said the Terra Flying has a pretty good matchup into Great Tusk, and then just go for a Terra Blast into it. I didn't send in the Flutter Mane because I expect the Scarlet or Iron Bundle to be the last Pokemon, and I think a full HP Flutter Mane will be pretty useful into either of those. So we commit the Terra Flying, but there's no protects from their side, so maybe they didn't go for it, maybe they didn't have it. But we're going to be able to get this Terra Blast off into their Great Tusk, deal over half, and they're just going to try to Stomping Tantrum my Tyranitar, but luckily we Terra Flying so it misses. Psychic Fangs is going to deal a little bit of damage to my Garchomp. And another Terra Blast should KO their Great Tusk. The Screamtail could be switching this turn. There is only one turn of Taunt left, so I don't know if it's worth it. But I don't think anything offensive is going to be coming from that slot this turn, except for maybe a Psychic Fangs. My Garchomp is going to go for a Swords Dance here. I expect the Great Tusk to just faint, and then my +2 Garchomp is going to be good into the potential Ceruledge in the back, even if they try to go for a Terra Grass. My opponent's going to actually switch out the Screamtail here and reveal that their last Pokemon is Ceruledge, so it's not the Iron Bundle. I was so focused on the Ceruledge Terra, I forgot to consider the Great Tusk going for one. And it's going to be Terra Steel, so they will absolutely survive this Terra Flying Terra Blast. Yeah, Terra Blast does incredibly little damage to your Great Tusk, and they do have Ice Spinner on their set. It's aimed into my Garchomp, and Garchomp is going to fall here. At this point, I'm a little bit worried. Luckily, the Ceruledge can't Terra Grass, but I did just lose a very healthy Garchomp. I'm going to be sending in the Flutter Mane now instead of the Gothitelle, because the Gothitelle would just faint to a Shadow Sneak. The Ice Spinner Great Tusk is worrying to me, so I'm going to focus that slot down with my Tyranitar. A Brick Break should just get the KO, though they could switch to the Screamtail to eat the hit. But I don't think the Ceruledge is threatening the Tyranitar too much right now. I think it's going to go after the Flutter Mane, so I'm going to protect the Flutter Mane this turn since it is the fastest on the field, and this is the last turn of Trick Room. I should have just went for Assurance into the Great Tusk instead, since it should get the KO, and if they switch to Screamtail, it's going to deal a little bit more damage than a Brick Break. My opponent will decide to switch out the Great Tusk and preserve it. And here comes the Screamtail. We're going to be protecting with the Flutter Mane though, so we won't be falling this turn. But this is a pretty low damage turn, they just get the switch off and we get a little bit of damage with Brick Break. The Screamtail isn't that big of a threat here offensively, so I'm going to go for a Rock Slide and Shadow Ball into the Ceruledge. They could go for a Protect, which would waste a turn for me, but I don't want to let the Ceruledge attack at all. And they will go for the Protect. We're able to at least prevent them from attacking my Flutter Mane this turn. And the Screamtail is going to set up a Light Screen. They could have gone for a Psychic Fangs into my Flutter Mane, which would bring me low enough that I think a Shadow Sneak would get the KO, but luckily they don't. So, since they protected last turn, this turn I should be 100% good to just attack the Ceruledge slot unless they go for a double and get it. I'm going to go for a Dazzling Gleam and an Assurance here. With the Light Screen up, I think they'll be able to survive the Shadow Ball, KO my Flutter Mane with Bitter Blade, and then disable my Rock Slide on Tyranitar. So I'm just going to go for a Dazzling Gleam and an Assurance, since I think Assurance will just get the OHKO. I probably should have went for a Shadow Ball and Assurance just to maximize damage in case they Bitter Blade and Reflect. But it turns out even if they get Reflect up, the Assurance is favored to get the KO. We're able to just get the Dazzling Gleam through, so this Assurance will be doing double damage. This time they'll go for the Psychic Fangs into Flutter Mane, and then a Bitter Blade into Flutter Mane as well. They're going to be able to heal up to full off that because we did pretty little damage with that Dazzling Gleam. But since they didn't Reflect, this Assurance will get the KO on the Ceruledge. Alright, so now we have to send in the Gothitelle, and they'll be sending in the Great Tusk. This position's a little bit awkward. My Gothitelle can survive one more hit, and I have Fake Out. However, if the Great Tusk protects this turn, then the Screamtail can Psychic Fangs my Gothitelle for the KO, and then they might be able to finish me off in the 2v1. If I expect to protect, then I should just Fake Out the Screamtail and then KO it, so then they can't knock out my Gothitelle, and then I think I can win the 2v1, but considering that my opponent didn't protect with the Great Tusk earlier, and considering that they have Stomping Tantrum and Ice Spinner on this set, I'm going to assume that they don't actually have Protect, maybe they're Assault Vest. If I KO the Great Tusk, then I should win because the Screamtail just doesn't have enough damage. So I'm going to Fake Out the Great Tusk. Luckily, the Fake Out goes through, there's no Protect from their side. And Screamtail just goes for a Perish Song as their 4th move, assuming that one of them is also Reflect. But we're going to be able to get the KO onto the Great Tusk here and win the battle. I honestly thought we might lose after that Ice Spinner KO onto the Garchomp, but we managed to pull through. The turn where the Garchomp fainted to Ice Spinner initially seemed like a blunder to me, but honestly that move was fine. If they would go for an Ice Spinner into my Garchomp, that means my Tyranitar stays healthy, and if my Garchomp is able to survive the turn, then I can protect the following turn, and then I get to unleash +2 Garchomp onto my opponents. I also didn't want to be passive on that turn either, since they're going to be switching or going for Psychic Fangs, which isn't very threatening, so even though I felt awful about it during the battle, in hindsight I stand by that play. I felt like things started to slip away from me when my opponent KO'd my Garchomp and then protected when my Fluttermane Shadow Balled into the Ceruledge, especially since it seemed like a pretty obvious play from them. I could have Shadow Balled the Screamtail that turn, but if the Ceruledge KOs my Fluttermane, then I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, so we just got pretty lucky that they didn't go for Psychic Fangs into my Fluttermane that turn. The Gothitelle was absolutely huge at the beginning of the battle. Surviving the booster attack Jaw Lock without the Terra is kind of absurd, and then the Citrus Berry gave us enough HP to end up surviving the entire battle. The Trick Room on the second turn was also huge, though it could have been bad if they had the Amoonguss. I'm really happy that I was able to get it right at the end with Fake Out, though I think I might have been fine either way since Ice Spinner shouldn't be enough to KO my Tyranitar, so they might need a crit, or maybe they have to go for Stone Edge. I honestly did not know my Great Tusk calcs into Terraflying Tyranitar, so maybe I should learn those. With that, we're able to break into the top 1000, which is a milestone for me that I'm really happy with. I hope to at least maintain this position for the rest of the season, but since I'm near the edge, I'll probably have to fight for it. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that last battle, and if you did, I hope you'll consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. I might be putting out one more video before the season ends, but I also might start looking at Regulation C, which is coming soon. No promises, but keep an eye out. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.